Good afternoon, everyone. This is Matt over at MilestoneCapitalGrowthPortfolio.com. Today is Monday, May 2nd. All right, hope you had a great weekend. We're going to take a look at SPY here, and I'm going to look at the lower time frames first before we move up to the higher time frames, okay? We have a double top in place here with some resistance at the 200. The relative strength index is at 70, and your slow stow is starting to turn down, and your regular stow is cranked up over here, just getting ready to take a little break. And the reason I want to point this out is because as we move into the daily time frame, be able to look at it and figure out where the reset would be. Okay, so your first line of support, of course, is going to be the 207.47 and then the 206.61 for this reset of the relative strength index. A half a move will be down here to the middle Bollinger Band, and then a full move would be down to the lower Bollinger Band. Potentially, that's how it moves. And if not, it can gap and go higher also. That can crank along the top. But typically, when you get into a pattern like this, it usually start to drop. This is a 15-minute chart, so I want you to be aware of that. The relative strength index is that high. So I'm going to move up to an hourly chart here, and you can see we've had beautiful candles off the low on Thursday. Just move Friday. Is that Friday? I think it was Friday. Yeah, Friday. Last hour pushed up pretty high, and then we had a double bottom here, and then we continued higher all day today, which was pretty good. I mean, it consistently moved. We do have this trend line in place here on the hourly, so any dip to 206.61 also falls in line with the 200 SMA. So if this does act as support, then I would imagine that we're coming up to test this before we break down lower or break higher if we break over this trend line. So I would assume we're going to get a nice little dip down and then push higher, but you can see your Bollinger Band is still pointing to the downside. It is not cranked up to the upside, so the pattern with this trend line also is that we've reached our top and we're going to take a break. So very low volume due to the push today, nothing spectacular. So let's move out to the daily. You can see the daily broke the middle Bollinger Band today, and we do have this trend line up here. Middle Bollinger Band is sitting at 207.47. So if we close on around the 206.61 tomorrow, then we are underneath that middle Bollinger Band, and things could pick up to the downside pretty quick. You can see your MACD is still selling off, is still heading down at a pretty good clip. Your Stow is heading down also, so this is kind of just a light volume oversold pop. Potentially, that is what is in place, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. All right, let's take a look at Apple here. Apple real quick. Apple did close 4 cents under the previous close, so it is very bearish still. Even though the relative strength index is at 14, I do have this set at 10. It's more aggressive, but typically everybody uses the 14, and even that's at 21. We're going to have to see what day three holds. It's still getting some pressure to the downside. It has bounced twice off the 92.51. So if it does break this 92.51, expect a little bit lower, but also expect this to go higher. Let's take a look at the lower time frame real quick, just so you know. 15-minute is way overbought. Well, it's not way overbought, but it's overbought. But it's inside this box here, where this is going to be heavy resistance, and this is going to be your support. And your trend line right now on this is a 15-minute chart, by the way, is right here to the upside. And until that breaks, we're going to stay consistent with it. So we can continue this until this line is broken. So we'll have to see tomorrow. But you can see your Stow is starting to turn, your MACD is starting to come down, your stochastics are starting to turn also, and your relative strength index is slowly coming down. So it looks like we hit the top of the box, acted as some pretty hard resistance, and then they're going to make definitely make some decisions on this. But typically when you get a big move like this to the downside, you get some accumulation before the next move, whatever that is going to be. And on this 15-minute chart, you can see that's what they're doing, but it's only 2 days worth of accumulation here. So still no decision on which way Apple is going to go. So moving it up to a higher time frame, we'll look at the hourly here. You can see the hourly, we'll get rid of this here. Your middle Bollinger Band is in the way right here. We have not, if we crack that, I would say we could probably get up and test this trend line like I was talking about on the weekend video, but we'll have to see about that. And then your upper Bollinger Band is right there. But it is pretty bearish looking still. Nothing aggressive. We had a nice couple candles here towards the end of the day. Nothing spectacular. It was not a volume breakout by any means, but you could see here this candle, and this candle acted as resistance for this whole thing. So, basically Apple doesn't have a decision yet. I do have downside still. I do have puts on this one. because it failed. So we'll have to see. But the daily, like I said, the daily is looking a little bit, trying to accumulate and decide what it's going to do. But because it's under this candle here, the previous day's candle, then it's still bearish to the downside. So I'm looking at probably a little more accumulation in this area until it gets back inside the Bollinger Band, and then it'll probably have a 3 or 4 day here, consolidation, and then maybe break to these upside targets, depending on the market conditions at the same time. But the market was up huge today. Apple decided not to go along with the ride. So again, that's also not a very bullish factor on that. Okay, but you can see on the weekly, I'm going to do a longer term also. You can see on the weekly here, the lower Bollinger Band is starting to push a little lower. Your relative strength index is only at 3682. Your slow stow has not turned to the upside yet, and your regular stow is still heading down. Your MACD is about to cross over here and get under this line, which could get pretty aggressive to the downside. You can see where our support triangle is right now. Let me take this unadjusted for splits off so we can really manage this. The 200 is acting as support on the weekly. If we close under that 200, look for this long-term trend line to be hit. I'm going to go a little bit longer on this too, just so you can see, and there is room for more down based on this weekly. And now we're going to move it up to the monthly, and I think I covered the monthly also. We're trying to find the support. Here's the 50 that's acting as support on the monthly, so you do have that support also on your weekly and your monthly, and you're accumulating right now. So you do have some nice support in this area, but by far there's no breakout to the upside or downside at this point. It's just sideways. Looking at the yearly and quarterly, here's the quarterly here. Take note of the middle Bollinger Band on the quarter. That's 88.50, 88.85. That's a very important number to have. Your relative strength index, and this is with the split not included, and you can see your relative strength index is at 56, looking for a reset. You have the 50-day support down here at 46.78 on the longer term, and then something really interesting that not too many people look at, but here's a yearly chart. Okay, and when you have any technicians out there take a look at something like this, there's something like this is pretty scary to invest in, because it looks like it's going to, your relative strength index is still at 76, and you have two candles here, and there's potential for this to really get lower. We'll have to see what happens with it. Are the days over for Apple for now until they come up with something interesting? We'll have to see. But that's going to be bouncing up and down and sideways and left and right and everything in between. But I just wanted you to take note of, what we have right now. This support is in here also. And we just came back inside the Bollinger Band on their yearly. Granted, we have plenty of time left in this year. But pre-split number is right here, 60, I think it's 70 actually, and then you have your middle Bollinger Band at 33 for the year, okay, and your lower Bollinger Band, we don't even want to talk about where that is, but just keep an eye on Apple. Just wanted to give you the whole view, technical view from my perspective. All right, this is Matt over at capitalgrowthportfolio.com. Have yourself a fantastic day.